we there yet?
Hi guys, welcome back to Facebook Live. I'm Alice and this is Duck.
Hello folks.
So earlier in the week we talked on the podcast about children's smartwatches
Yes.
that are leaking data. So I thought at this time of year in December when people are getting given gifts that they might not have asked for, or potentially you're buying gifts for your own kids that you're not sure about, it was probably a good story to cover again. So Duck, can you tell us what the story is here?
Yes, when I first heard about this, someone said, "Oh, have you read this thing about the SMA M2? That's the model."
Right.
And I thought, SMA M2, I thought, well, there's a Colt AR-15, there's a SIG P220. I thought this was all about small arms, sounds like a weapon. But actually, it's a children's smartwatch, it's nice and pink, it's big and plastic and cheap, $32. You put it on their wrist, they can tell the time, it's supposedly good, clean fun, and it can call home, and because it has GPS, it can record on a cloud server where your kids are at any time.
Okay.
You can pair it up with an app on your smartphone, and then the theory is that what happens is you can see where your kids are. So if they wander off, or if they've got lost, or if they don't show up when they're supposed to, or they go to the cinema when they're actually supposed to be at sports practice, you can kind of figure out.
So the point of this is for parents to feel like they know where their kids are. If their kids go into an area they weren't expecting, they're going to be notified. So it's all about safety from the parents' perspective.
That's the idea. So the idea is you give them a smartwatch. It's cool to have a smartwatch. It tells the time. It does a whole load of other things, and it's supposed to improve their safety and their security.
Right.
Problem. Actually does exactly the opposite, because the combination of the watch, the cloud service that collects the data, and the smartphone app was so badly designed and so badly implemented that rather than you being able to use your app to see your kids' data and nothing else, it turns out that almost anybody anywhere in the world could log in, pretend to be any user of the system, and retrieve precise GPS history about other people's kids, thousands of them in fact, when this particular watch was tested. So it's cybersecurity for your kids backwards. It's actually making their safety and their security much worse because other people know.
Track them. Right.
And you just think, wow, that's not what you wanted when you bought the thing. No. And it's certainly not what you want if grandma thinks, oh, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this for the grandkids. Like, how do you break the news that actually this present that she paid $32 for is kind of going straight into landfill?
With that, is it just avoid this model, or is it smartwatches in general?
That's a kind of an open and a difficult question. And there are two sides to the answer. The first is that this so-called IoT, Internet of Things, the little devices that never used to be online and now they've become almost like compute servers in their own right, they're usually built down to a price, so you try and keep the cost down, and that means there's no money to spend on getting security up. Right. So the IoT has a justifiably bad reputation for this, smartwatches and other products beside. So it's impossible to say, well, because this one is bad, they're all bad, but there isn't really time for researchers to go and buy every possible smartwatch when there are thousands of different vendors. The other problem is, who knows where the SMA M2 gets its parts from? This could be bought from a supplier who's churning out sort of like unbranded smartwatches. Right. They may actually appear with 72 different brand names. In the same way that when you buy a budget phone, it'll have a carrier's name on it and it might have a vendor's name on it, but you don't know what factory it was made in, what firmware it gets, who actually made it. And you hear of a bug in one model, that bug may be exactly the same in another model, because although they've got different name on the outside, actually inside, same thing.
Okay. So you mentioned the IoT, is all of that bad?
Well, that's where the question about should we condemn all kids' smartwatches because this one is bad? Right. And actually we've written on Naked Security rather too often in recent years about dodgy smartphones. So if I had kids, I would not give them smartwatches, definitely not a cheap one that made crazy promises on its website. I just figure there's a better way of doing it that doesn't put them at risk. The problem is it isn't just smartwatches and it isn't just kids, because there are other devices that go online so that you don't have to wire them up or wire them into your network. Things like doorbells, webcams, baby monitors, all that kind of stuff that in the old days you had to drill holes in the wall, connect them to a PowerPoint and wire them into your network. Now you just take them home, connect them up to your Wi-Fi, or they do it automatically, and then who knows what they're doing with the data. And is your internet doorbell that you bought really cheaply, is it actually helping you keep your eye on crooks who come to your property, or is it helping crooks see when you go out so they know when to rob your house? And this is a very open question with the
kind of
Internet of Things.
Brands, price, would you say that this one that's $32, maybe there is a higher risk, it's cheaply made, you know, if you were buying it from a brand like Apple, is there going to be less risk of this?
That's the theory. And you could say, I mean, it sounds unfair to say, well, only buy from a big vendor and only buy if the price is high, because that's easy for somebody to game. They just come along and say, this is not a $32 smartwatch. Well, it is, but we're selling it for $99, so it must be better. The thing with the main brands, you know, you're thinking people like Apple and Google and so on, is that some of their devices have actually been in the market for quite a while. Some of them, Google bought Nest, which make home automation devices. They've had security problems in the past that Google have had to front up to, and so they've already kind of been put to the test, so you can judge how they responded and you can judge how they adapted, how their devices work. So there's a bit more history, and B, a bit more accountability and a bit more responsiveness from the bigger companies. Because I bet you, no disrespect to SMA, but if you tried to call them up in Shenzhen or wherever they are and tried to get onto a support person and say, how did you implement the cloud service of this, you're not going to get an answer, because at $32 they can't afford to take your phone call, even if they care.
We've had a comment from Cameron. Hi, thanks for joining us. Everybody else, let us know if you're watching. We love to see who we're reaching.
Yes.
And finally, Doug, what would you recommend people do? So, for example, if Granny does buy you this as a gift, you feel bad, she thinks it's a lovely gift, you know, would you just advise people don't put them on their children and decline the gift? Or, I mean, what advice can you give?
Oh, you mean, are you asking for me to... I should come up with the white lie that helps you get rid of it.
Example, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, I don't remember this. I was about 2 years old. My uncle bought me this tin plate bus for Christmas, and it was this massive thing, and I absolutely loved it, and I was taking it everywhere. My parents realised this thing is a health and safety nightmare, and this is even back then when nobody cared. It was made of pressed steel, and it would cut you, and the wheels came off, and there were also spiky axles, and they figured, we can't let it. So they kind of took there was a photo of me holding it when it was new, and I think what they did is they took a photo and they said, look how much you loved it, which I did, and they said, but it must have got lost. And I think they just made it go away in a way that saved face. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but it is difficult. And my recommendation is, if you're thinking of, hey, I'm in the shop, look, I've heard of this smartwatch, this smart thing, smart doorbell, smart whatever. Maybe consider not buying it for someone. In other words, maybe buy them a gift card instead that covers the amount, and say, I was thinking of buying you a smartwatch. It costs $50. Here's a $50 card. That way, if you're not into smartwatches and you don't think you want to put one on your kid's wrist, it's not me making you feel forced to do it. That's my recommendation. Just don't push people into accepting IoT gifts that they feel they have to deploy, so when you come around next time they can see, oh look, there's your webcam, look, wave to it.
And what about if you've actually bought a smartwatch for your own kids, they're currently using them, you're watching this video now and you're thinking, should I take that off my kids? What would your advice be?
You need to go and do perhaps the due diligence by going and finding the vendor's website, finding what you can about it. Now, that may not tell you that the watch is good, but to be honest, if you looked at that, I went to look at that SMA M2 website, and to be serious, if you go there and if you look at that website, they spent no more than $4.99 putting that whole website together. It is like, there's no way you could look at that. As Mark said in the podcast, if you got a phishing email that was that bad, you would burst out laughing at it. So now you're going to put this thing on your child's wrist, and you maybe end up with something that you think, $32 down the toilet. And I'm sorry to say that could happen.
Made on the podcast was that you often don't buy direct from the vendor, you'd buy from Amazon or somewhere. So would you say, as part of this due diligence, to go onto the actual vendor website, check them out, see if you like them?
I think it is a little bit like phishing emails. That a really good one, a well-crafted scam, you might not spot. So if they put lots of effort into the website, the watch could still be rubbish. But if you see anything that makes you think, you know what, there's no way that these guys care about my kids' security as much as they claim, if you even get an inkling of that, then basically go with your gut instincts. You're probably not wrong.
Perfect. Well, that's all we've got time for. So we've had no questions live, but if you have any after the stream's finished, do drop them below and Duck will get back to you. And thanks for watching, guys.
Dispose responsibly.
What of the watches that you did buy?
If you do get IoT things made of plastic with all that stuff inside, don't just go and throw them in the canal because you decide you don't want them anymore. Or consider if you could repurpose them in your home in a way that's just for fun.
Else.
Yeah, don't do that. But you've got a webcam, maybe you can just use it locally for a bit of fun, and you don't need to connect it to the internet so you can watch it from outside.
Okay,
so
cool.
Take it easy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.